All right, here we go. Thanks for jumping in. Got plenty of new listeners. Thanks for checking this place out. Happy to have you. And of course, much love to everybody for the support. Rolling up on 97 episodes. It's been an awesome ride, and something happened for the very first time. You think you've seen and heard it all? Nope. Something happened to me in this episode. But before I tell you all about that, I got a couple things I want to throw at you like I normally do. Don't forget, man, Live Rishi. These guys make high-quality CBD product. They've been supporting the show since the beginning, and I've been using their product long before I started this show. And one of my product that I always use is the 1,000 milligram tincture. You put a little bit of that under your tongue. You want to sleep like a baby. And I have a 16-month-old son, and he sleeps for like 12 hours. You want to sleep like that? Try it out. LiveRishi.com. Use the code word table 50. Going to let them know I sent you, and you're looking at 50% off your entire order. And they got a lot of other great stuff on there. Awesome website. Speaking of websites, would love for you to check mine out. Walt'sKitchenTable.com. Got everything you need to know about the show. And everybody in Central Jersey, I got a story slam coming up. Check that out over at Walt's Kitchen Table if you want details. But I want to get on to this show. Welcome to Walt's Kitchen Table, where I feature captivating stories from fascinating people. RJ reached out to me, and we instantly connected. This dude is a funny motherfucker, man. I love talking to this guy. Definitely going to have him back on. But something happened in the first time in 97 episodes. This dude gave me homework, right? Son of a bitch. I thought I was long past that. But yep, he gave me homework, and I'm going to give you some as well. Remuneration. Never heard that word before? And look it up if you want to know the meaning. But getting back to RJ, this guy had an awesome career in the newspaper business for a long time. Of course, we're going to talk about that. He's a huge fan of silent films. Learned some pretty cool stuff. And you want to know where the title of this episode came from? Well, it's an awesome story about having the train station floating backwards. But you know what? I'm going to let RJ tell you all about it. Let's get to it. All right, buddy. We are live. And my disclaimer is now everything you say is going to be on the internet.
Well, that works for me.
All right, perfect. It's not like one of these silent films you like, man. We got to talk through this.
If I'd thought ahead, I would have prepared some title cards and, just held them up,
Oh, that would have been great. You just like sliding them through. That'd have been great. And play the spooky music,
There you go. Yeah, I would have brought an organ right here into my inner sanctum and had somebody play it.
Oh, that'd be great. Now, back in the day with the silent movies, is that really, or is that the main instrument? Some
of the silent movies actually had scores written for them. And your bigger movie house would have, big pipe organ and would have someone to play. Smaller venues in smaller towns, it might just be a piano. Some places were big enough that they had a whole orchestra to play the score that was written specifically for that movie. Sometimes there wasn't a score written for that movie, and the organist or the pianist just had to ad lib. And they pick up little things here and there, bits of classical music or whatever as they felt appropriate, and ad lib it as they went along.
So you're telling me, like nowadays, when a movie house, like AMC, they order a movie, of course, it's either on a reel or digital, right?
Most of them are digital today.
Right. I just remembered this. I got a funny story for you. The classic thing when a film stops and goes brrr, and then it heats up and burns?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That actually happened to me one time in a cheap movie theater I brought a date to.
Oh.
We were watching, it was $1 theater, and we're watching it, and all of a sudden it goes brrr, and and I'm like, is that part of the... Wait a minute, was that part of the movie?
It might have been the best part of the movie.
I didn't pay too
something
much.
Like that, where you're waiting for it to end.
Yeah, exactly. To be honest with you, I wasn't paying much mind to the movie, but that's a whole other story.
Well, I've had that experience too.
But so back in the silent movie days, did they they got the movie, I assume on a reel,
Yeah.
but then they got a score of music. So they had to have somebody there playing the music.
Depended on the movie. Some of the
Okay.
movies, your bigger productions would come with a score, music written out for, just like a movie today has a score, but
Right.
of course it's on, the film with the sound. But in those days, there wasn't any sound. So to provide the musical, the mood music, somebody there in the theater would have to play it.
That's cool. I never even thought of that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
I
That's
never,
super cool.
I knew that they did that, but until I started researching it, I didn't have any idea that some movies actually had an entire score written, composed for that particular movie.
And now, did that get more and more later in the years as movies got more and more developed?
Yeah, I think so. As they got longer and the productions got bigger and more
Sure.
money was involved, some of those silent movies that you think of as classics are less than 15 minutes long. Like The Great
Wow.
Train Robbery. So
How long is that? The
how
Great
long
Train
is-
The Great Train Robbery.
Oh, I think it's about 12 minutes.
No shit. I
Yeah,
got
the
to
whole
look that
thing.
up.
Yeah.
And how long now for production reason or for production stuff? How long do you think that took to like film?
Oh, I would guess a few days,
That's
maybe
crazy.
a week
Isn't that
at the
amazing?
most.
Yeah,
They did
yeah.
some of it in a studio,
Sure.
which
sure.
I think would be quite a bit different than the kinds of studios we're used to today. And they did some of it, out in the field with actual, steam locomotive.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene in that movie where the train robbers are fighting with the engineer and the fireman, and they actually throw one of them off the train. Well, it's a dummy, right? But I guess this was early enough in film production and whatnot. Passersby thought it was for real. They're
So
like, that poor guy, he got thrown off the train.
oh my God,
You know?
well, I mean, that makes sense back then. People probably that saw that had no idea that it was a movie and what they were doing, right?
Right.
I
I
mean-
mean, and it was on an actual railroad, a working railroad.
Yeah.
That they just
yeah.
shut down for the day to do the filming.
That's
And I'm sure it
funny.
was actual engine and train cars and everything that I'm sure there was some financial remuneration that went on to borrow those for the day to film the darn thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's just like today when, because I was involved in the film business for a little bit. I had a video photo production company, and we had to rent cars and trucks and stuff like that. So I imagine
Okay.
that hasn't changed since then. They probably went
Yeah.
to the railroad and said, listen, and they said, hey, man, during the day we make X amount of money. So if you want to pay that, okay.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
same type of thing. And
There's
those,
a stretch of highway between where I live and the town where I work. It's called the Tom Osborne Expressway. And over the years, it's been used in numerous movies as a stand-in for an interstate highway. Because my understanding is they will not shut down an interstate highway for filming.
oh, really? I wouldn't know that.
And this happens to be a 4-lane divided highway with a grass median. And if you didn't know any better, you would think it was an interstate.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's been used any number of times for filming because I guess the state of Nebraska, they don't have too much compunction about shutting that down for the right amount of money. It's never happened during my commute, but I know it's happened in the past.
Well, the thing is, the first thing that popped in my mind when you're like this stretch of highway, and I'm like, dude, you're in fucking Nebraska. Everything's a stretch of highway in Nebraska. I remember driving through there many, many times, going from Colorado to New York,
Yeah.
and at night it's like you're in space because
Oh.
there's no lights, there's no ambient light, there's nothing. You're just driving.
Well, try it sometime like in the fall when all the corn's tall.
Right?
And it's like driving through this tunnel.
Oh yeah, imagine.
It's like driving through a tunnel of corn
Yep.
at night in the dark,
Yep. And I came through there. I came through there one time in the winter, and I was literally right on the ass end of a plow truck. And the only
Oh.
thing keeping me on the road was the rumble strip.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I was behind the plow truck, and you can't see. Other than that, I couldn't see nothing. I mean,
Yeah. I've
that's
had
just-
some experiences like that just commuting back and forth to work. That's about 40 minutes when the weather's good. And if there's a snowstorm going on, it might be about an hour and a half,
yeah, for sure.
you know.
Yeah, but
You
that's
just slow down to a crawl.
but when you're on a good day, how many miles is that? Takes you 45 minutes to go how far?
Oh, it's like I say, it's about 40 minutes from my door to the parking lot. It's about 25 miles, I think.
It takes me, in my job, it takes me just that amount of time to go 2 miles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Jersey City for work, so
Yeah. Well, it's not that much different. I mean, obviously we're talking about much smaller towns, but what takes all the time is getting from my house to the highway
oh yeah,
and from the highway to the office.
oh yeah, and that
Well,
stretch.
Let me say this, from the edge of town to the office. That's at least half the commute right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Getting
for
in and
sure.
out of those two respective towns.
Mhm,
The bit in the middle, it's a lot longer distance, but you're going 70 miles an hour. It's not that bad.
Now the town that you live in, how old is it?
Oh, well, let's see. First settlers around here were like in the 1850s.
Because what I think about here out in Jersey City and New York and Newark and that type of thing,
Yeah.
when those places, the inner cities especially, were first built, they were nowhere thinking amount of traffic that infrastructure had to deal with.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then where do you go from there? Everything's buildings, so not like
Yeah,
you can make
everything's
more
built
roads.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking you live in a small town, Nebraska, or started as a small town, and it got populated. Now the traffic grid just doesn't work with the population.
Well, the interesting thing about our traffic grid is in the center of town, it goes parallel with the railroad. And then you get out toward the edges of town and it runs north, south, east, west, parallel with section lines.
Oh, okay.
So there's all these weird intersections
Mhm.
where the one grid that's, like this runs into the other grid that's like this.
Yeah.
And you have all these strange points and angles and, cul-de-sacs and intersections where you have to twist your head off to see if traffic's coming the other way.
Sure.
kind
The
of
real
thing.
tight angle. Is the railroad take up quite a bit of your town? I know that's big out in Nebraska. I mean, that's a huge.
Well, we've got two railroads in Grand Island. We've got Union Pacific and we've got Burlington Northern. And if you're a train enthusiast, which I'm not a train spotter or anything, but we have a lot of them around here, you can see more trains going in and out of here than almost anywhere else
Yeah.
in the country. Well, I suppose Chicago. So, there's a lot of trains. And, there's like 3 ways, I think, in Grand Island that you can get across the tracks without stopping for a train. Anywhere else in town, you're going to have to stop for a train.
Yeah.
2
Because
underpasses and an overpass, I think, is pretty much it.
Yeah, because I was out in Colorado for almost 20 years,
Yeah.
and the trains out there are not short.
Oh,
So-
no, these aren't either.
Yeah. When they
A lot
come
of
rolling
coal
through.
trains from the Powder River Basin and that kind of thing
Hmm.
going through here.
Yeah,
So,
I enjoy trains and always have. And there was one point I was living up in upstate New York at the time. That's where I was born and raised. And there was one point before I moved to Colorado, I was going to take it was actually going to be a vacation where you could be like a hobo and ride the rails.
Oh, really?
And there was like services that showed you what trains that you could jump on and do and all that. But it got so intricate and the logistics were, I was like, man, I worked that hard at it, you know. But they mentioned,
Willie.
yeah. But then, of course, they have the asterisk that, God, what'd they call it? It wasn't just trespassing. It was like grand something trespassing. It was some crazy thing that you would get charged for because the property is in motion.
Oh,
I don't,
okay.
if somebody
Well,
can
like on
answer.
the train itself, not on the railroad grounds or the right of way or anything.
Correct. Well,
On
they
the
would
train
get you,
itself.
they would get you because where the gravel starts and the grass ends, or whatever pavement or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But where the gravel starts, that's where the railroad property starts.
Yeah.
So once you step on the gravel, now you're on railroad property. So they can get you for trespassing there. But then there was this other level of charges because the moving property. So the train itself that's in motion, they had some weird thing. If somebody can answer that, that's great, but I don't feel like Googling it. So I just remember that, and I was like, oh, Jesus, that's all I need in the middle of Nebraska, get caught and then end up in some podunk jail. Yeah, no, I'm good. I'll just pass. I'll go to Vegas instead.
Yeah. My wife and I had an experience with a train a few years ago that you live in this part of the country and Amtrak comes through like it's supposed to come through at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. That's the only time you can catch Amtrak. And it doesn't come to Grand Island where we live. It comes to Hastings, which is where I work.
Okay.
So it's like 25 miles away.
Yep.
So if you know somebody that needs to catch the train, you got to drive 25 miles away in the middle of the night to get them there. Mm-hmm. And then the thing doesn't usually get there till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So we knew this young lady. My wife and I used to do foster care, and she was like part of our family. This girl, and she had a little baby, and she was going up to Utah to see her birth mom. She hadn't seen her in like 15 years or something. Since she was a little kid. So we volunteered to take her to meet the train. And she had all this stuff. I mean, she had, these huge suitcases. She had 3 or 4 of them. She had this collapsible playpen. She had the baby in the carrier. She had, a big diaper bag, 2 or 3 diaper bags, whatever, all this stuff. And so, we waited there at the train station with her till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And the train finally pulls in, and she's got all this stuff, And so we're picking up all these bags, helping her with the bags. And, the conductor's there or whatever. And he says, how many tickets? And the girl just says, well, just one for me and the baby. Doesn't even talk to us. So we walk up on the train. She's finding her seat. We're getting all these bags together for her. And I looked out the window and I had this surreal experience that the train station was floating away backwards.
Oh my God, are you serious?
I thought, is it sleep deprivation? What is it? No, the train had started. It was going.
That's
and awesome. I tell you, you can run down Amtrak, but that's a smooth ride. We couldn't even tell the train was moving.
Yeah, yeah.
And and right away I said, "Oh, we got to get off this train." And grabbed the conductor and this little tin pot dictator, and
they're
said,
brutal.
"We're not supposed to be on this train." And he's, "What? What are you doing on the train?"
Now it's your fault.
Yes. And I said, "Well, we came on to help her with all these bags and everything," and he started shaking his finger at us and saying, "Never get on the train. Never get on the train." And steam was coming out of his ears, and he had to run and pull the line or whatever to stop the train.
Yeah.
And if he hadn't, we would have wound up in Holdridge, Nebraska, which is like a town with like, I don't know, 7,000 people in it. I can't imagine there's much to do there at 5 a.m.
Yeah, and an Uber ride back probably would have been a little expensive.
So they stopped the train, and we got off, and oh, he was mad, and but the guy from the station came. This was several blocks away by then.
Yeah,
And he had a little golf cart or something. He drove it down to where we were and
picked you
drove
up.
us back to the station and whatnot. But yeah, the hazards of mass transit and
Oh my God, that's a great
rural
story.
Nebraska.
You would end up in Chicago.
Yeah, well,
Going to
it
Chicago.
was going
imagine that.
west.
Oh,
She was
okay.
going to Utah, so
Oh yeah.
somewhere in Colorado, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Eventually, Utah. If we just stayed on there, we could have got a free ride, I guess.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, they probably would have asked us for our tickets, though.
So the experience that I have, because I like trains, and I was living in Colorado at the time, and the cheapest way to get back to New York was by train.
Yeah.
And because at that time the government was doing a subsidization, so like a round trip ticket was $140 or something to go from Denver to New York and back, and so, but the thing is, it was 2-day trip one way, so it was 4 days. 4 days total.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, cell phones weren't around. You didn't have that kind of stuff, and people were like, "Dude, that's 4 days of your vacation." And I go, "Exactly. That's 2 days out that nobody knows where I'm at. Nobody's calling me. Nothing. I got 2-3 books with me, and I never got a sleeper car. Nothing. I just stayed in the coach seat."
Yeah.
Read books and listened to music and just watched the country go by. And from Colorado to Chicago, you could ride on, they were the double decker, right? They're a 2-story train.
Mm-hmm.
But from Chicago to upstate New York had to be single level because of the bridges and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you would end up in, if I remember right, you're at the base of the Sears Tower. Grand Central Station in Chicago is like a huge mall under my layover was 6 hours, and it went by like a snap because they drop you off, you go get cleaned up, you get something to eat, you might walk around a minute, do something, relax, and all of a sudden you're like, shit, I gotta grab my train. So it was just a fun experience for me.
Yeah.
I did enjoy it, and they are a smooth ride, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
West, they're smooth. Go east of Chicago, and all you hear is dun 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 the whole time, because you're just banging on the tracks,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little rougher ride on the East Coast than West, but for obvious reasons, older.
Now you said you're from upstate New York.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Oneida, New York.
Okay, now I don't really know my New York state geography, but my wife is from Syracuse.
My dad worked in Syracuse for 30 plus years at Centro, the mass transit. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Buses. His last part of his career, big part of his career was he drove bus specifically for Syracuse University.
Yeah, that's where my wife's parents, I think, met there. I think they were both students.
Oh, nice.
At Syracuse University. Yeah.
But it's about a 30-minute, give or take, whatever ish, 30-ish minute hike from where I was born and raised. And there's a huge plaque in the ground that says it's the geographical center of the state.
Oh, okay.
So when I tell people I'm from Central New York,
there you go.
I'm from Central New York. So we found it by accident one day. Kids were out hiking and banging around, and we're like, "What's this say?" And we cleaned it off, and it just described that it was the middle of the state. So that's kind of fun to see. But yeah, that's not too far from Syracuse. And my wife and I are soon this summer. Our trip is going to be like the Finger Lakes and stuff. We're going to get a campground and go hang out up there, and I'll take her to Niagara Falls and do all that good stuff. Yeah, that's one of those things you got to see, right?
Well, I've been there, but it's been a long time. I think I was probably about 7 or 8 years old. So
it's probably back a few inches since you've been there.
Yeah, probably.
yeah. I just listened to a podcast about the first people that went over the falls in like daredevils, like in a barrel.
A barrel or whatever. Yeah.
I just can't wrap my head around it that I'm going to go half a mile upstream in this raging river because it's not calm
Yeah.
by any means. I'm going to get in a barrel. You're going to chuck me in the river, and hopefully I make it over this falls. What?
And don't die in the process.
Yeah, I don't know.
On some rocks or whatever. Yeah.
I have no idea what makes people.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know. We were sort of fascinated by that sort of stuff when I was a kid. That and
oh, sure.
You know, people like the Flying Melindas walking on wires across, you know, the, Niagara Falls, and you know, escape artists like Harry Houdini and all that sort of stuff. You know, and we would tie each other up, you know, sometimes and try to get out of it, and, you know, stuff like that. You know.
Yeah, but that was cool. You know, we have a good friend, and he was just on the show, is Simon Mandel, and he's a magician, and he's been a professional for 20 plus years or whatever. And he does the strolling magic and the pow, 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 the magic, you know, like the quick.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy that magic. You know, the long drawn out stuff is not, I don't, you know, it's a
he
talent.
Does that sort of up close stuff.
Yeah. And he's great. I mean, just crazy talented. Like, oh, here, you'll like this. His latest trick, because he does all big corporate events too, right?
Yeah.
So say that there's Google or something in Nebraska, and he's up here in New Jersey, and they hire him to come out in December for their Christmas party.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
About 6 weeks prior, he FedExes an envelope to the place and says, do not open it, and puts these seals on it that he only knows about, you know, so he can tell if it's been open. Then during his magic trick for his closer, he calls somebody up from the crowd.
Yeah.
Make sure that you know, we don't know each other. You never seen me, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So if you had unlimited money, where would you go right now? How would you go? Like, okay, I'm going to go to, Antarctica, and I'm going to take a helicopter.
Yeah.
You know, right? Just details like that. He gets the envelope. He has somebody bring him the envelope. He opens it up, and it's the same details that person tells him, and it's a picture of the person.
Huh.
So he unfolds it in half, and there's the details. And the lady's like, he was telling me he did it. And the lady's like, what? And he goes, wait a minute. Whoosh. Is this you? And of course the crowd I'm like, how do you even, I go, I'm the type of guy that doesn't try to figure out a magic trick. I just go, wow, it's amazing. Yeah. And I feel good about it, and I move on. So,
yeah, there you go.
But just to
destroy the illusion.
Yeah. That's a good way to say it. But like Harry Houdini, that dude fascinated me, especially how he died, right? Is that crazy?
Yeah. Yeah.
A guy just come up without him knowing and punches him. Freaking. Well, the human body itself is fragile and amazing at the same time, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of mysteries there.
Yeah. And speaking of mysteries, how the hell did you get into silent films?
Well, you know, I think that probably goes back to college and taking a mass media class.
Mass media.
Yeah. You know, like all kinds of mass forms of media. At that time, I was a journalism major. Okay. So mass media was one of the classes you had to take.
Oh, that makes
sense. Things like books and newspapers, magazines, television, film, radio, you know, all that kind of stuff. And you would study all those things. And so the one in particular I remember was Battleship Potemkin, which is a Russian film.
Okay.
And about this mutiny on one of their ships, one of their naval ships called the Potemkin. And it's really kind of a propaganda film, but it's just, you know, beautifully done. It's been voted different times as the best movie ever made, that kind of thing. But there's this very famous scene at what they call the Odessa Steps, where the people have all come out to cheer the ship and the sailors, you know, and the Tsar sends out his troops, and they're, lockstep marching into the crowd down the steps, firing on the people. And there's this baby carriage, old-fashioned baby carriage with the baby in it that goes bouncing down the steps. And you've probably seen the movie The Untouchables with Kevin Costner.
Oh, of course. Of course.
And there's that big scene in the train station in Chicago where they're having the shootout with the bad guys at the end. And there's a lady with the baby carriage. And the carriage goes down the steps. And that was in imitation of the scene in Battleship Potemkin.
That's kind of fun. So it's kind of like a tribute to the movie, right?
Right.
And
I've always been interested in movies and old movies. I not sure why exactly, but so then, as I got older and I was, I had my own kids, and my oldest daughter has a couple of history degrees. And so she got interested in them too, so that's kind of a hobby for us.
Oh, nice. And a nice connection to go along with it too, right?
Right.
Yeah. Now, did you always want to be a journalist?
Well, I tell you what, I wanted to be, I have to back it up a little bit. Before I could even write, when I was like about 4 or 5 years old, I don't think I'd gone to school yet. When you're a kid, everybody has that little watercolor set, watercolor paint set.
Mm-hmm.
And I had one, and I got the newspaper out, and I copied the cartoons in the newspaper. And then I took them around to my neighbors and delivered them to them like I was delivering a newspaper. My older brother had paper route,
Yeah.
And later on I did too. But when I was in high school, I did journalism a little bit, if you could put a sentence together, they had you do that. And so then when I went out off to college, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I just, drove to the nearest town with a community college and showed up at the building and said, okay, I want to go to college.
And they're like, hey, does your check clear? Yep. All right, come on in.
Well, I was from the financial situation that I had tons of financial aid, so my family didn't have much money. So they were happy to have me,
Oh, yeah. You were a vehicle for financial aid.
There you go. I was a conduit.
There you go. Yeah.
To their coffers. And but it's like, oh, well, what do you want to major in? What do you want to do? And I was like, well, I want to be John Steinbeck.
Oh, see, I was going to make a journalist remark, be like, hey, did you want to be this guy, or did you want to be, I didn't think of that.
So the registrar who is filling all this out, so she just fills out journalism. So that's what she wrote down. So, now I'm in journalism, and I had done some of that in high school, so I was cool with that, and I didn't really know what I was going to do from one semester to the next anyway, and because I wasn't getting a whole lot of direction from anybody.
Sure.
And anyway, so I majored in journalism for a few years, and then I changed my major to English. I took a lot of English classes, literature and stuff like that. And then, one of my advisors in college, he said, well, if you major in English and you don't want to teach, it's not like you can, open your own English shop and, go sell adverbs like, in Schoolhouse Rock, lolly, 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 get your adverbs here. You can't really do that, So you need to have some sort of plan. And it just so happened that the local newspaper had a couple of positions open. And one of them was a sports editor. I didn't know a whole lot about sports. And the other one was what they used to call the wire editor. So the guy that was in charge of all the AP, Associated Press stuff that was coming in. And so I applied for both those jobs. And the guy that was the managing editor, he was this crusty old guy that had been a non-com in the Air Force for 20 years.
Oh.
And he didn't like college boys. He told me that when I went in the interview. He said, I don't like college boys.
Well, that's a good start to the interview.
And, so we had the little interview and I left and I thought didn't hold up much hopes for that. And then, maybe a week later or whatever, he calls me up and he says, you want the job. And
how old were you at that time?
I was 22, I think.
Okay.
And I actually, I took an extra semester. So it was the end of the fall semester and had my last final on a Friday. And on Monday, I was working at the paper. And I found out later what happened was there was this fellow there, and he wasn't there. This guy who had worked for the paper previously, and the boss didn't like him, but he had an in with the publisher.
No,
this lady whose family owned the paper.
Well,
and
that's a good in.
I kind of knew this guy. He had like 10 or 20 years more experience than I did. And I'd seen stuff he'd done other places and whatnot, met him once or twice and told him I admired his work and whatnot. And, but he was sort of playing Hamlet about the whole thing. Every time Lee, the boss, would call him up and say, well, do you want the job or not? And the guy would say, well, I'm not sure. I got some other offers on my plate, et cetera, and so on. He did this one or two times too often. And so Lee says to him, I don't need to hire you. I could hire this college kid whose resume I got on my desk. And he slammed the phone, and I guess he picked it back up, and he called me.
Oh.
And I needed a job, so I was more than happy to take it. And
I like that. I got this college kid that I could hire. Like, well, fuck you too.
I worked there for about a year and a half, and by that time, I'd gotten married and I needed to start making a little more money, and I got an offer at another paper about 50 miles away, and better pay and whatnot. And so the tradition there at the Dodge City Daily Globe, where I was working, was on your last day they take you out to lunch. Everybody come to lunch and they take you to lunch and pay for your lunch, and we did that, and being the guest of honor, kind of had to sit there and wait till everybody else left and said their goodbyes or whatever. And so Lee, my boss, walked up to the table where I was sitting with a few other people, and he looked down at me and he said, I don't have to like you anymore.
See ya. I love it, dude. I love it. Boom.
But he was a good guy. I learned stuff from him. And he's kind of a crusty character, but newspapers are full of that sort of people.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's man, who I was talking to a guy long time ago, months ago, and he grew up. He cut his teeth for like 6-7 years in a newsroom, and we were comparing that to like the job I have now. I'm a blue collar worker. I work out in the field, and the way we talk to one another is politically. I don't think half the guys can spell politically correct. So, and he's like, dude, I spent years in a newsroom. You can't insult me. Yeah. I was like, hey, I get it.
Yeah.
People yelling at you.
From being a high pressure environment.
Yeah.
But, I think it's that unique mix of people that are, well enough educated, well enough read, but they're sort of, they have sort of rough and tumble personalities. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And going back far enough, a lot of those guys came up through the trades, through the days before you went to college and learned something like that. You started off as a copy boy or, a back far enough printer's devil or whatever you were.
Yep.
And you kind of learned as you went along. It was more like a apprenticeship.
Sure.
kind
Sure.
of
Oh, man,
approach.
that's a
You
great
know.
way to look at that. I never would have put that together. But man, now I think about it, yeah, the old school guys there was probably a handful of those guys around when you were just starting.
Oh yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah. Both in the newsroom and especially in composing, paste up. There were a lot of those old time characters
Yeah.
from that still hanging around from the hot lead days.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew, there's
You know.
some salty dudes, huh?
And you can learn a lot of stuff from those guys.
Oh, 100%. Oh, yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
not all guys. Women too.
Mhm.
Old newspaper women. A lot of them were tough as nails and smart as a whip.
Yeah. Yeah. And tell you what they think and not think nothing about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, when I worked in Garden City, Kansas, have you read In Cold Blood,
In cold
the
blood.
Truman Capote book? Okay, about
Nope.
the murders there in the small town in Kansas.
I've probably heard something about it because I like all that stuff. That's like my,
Yeah, well, that's your homework assignment.
all right,
Go out and buy a
perfect.
copy and read it. It's good stuff. And took place
First
there in
time-
Holcomb, Kansas, which was a little you might say today bedroom community for Garden City, where I was working at the time.
Now, what do you
And,
mean? Hey, let me back you up there. What do you mean by bedroom community?
Like a suburb, like a place where people live, but they don't work there. They
Okay.
drive some bigger town to work. So they get up in the morning, drive to some bigger town to work,
Yeah.
drive back to the, and go to sleep at night,
So I've never heard of it though. A bedroom community. That's pretty cool.
Suburb,
Okay.
whatever.
All right. I
Western Kansas, Western Nebraska, even Central Nebraska, we don't really have suburbs where, it's like where it's like an appendage. They're usually, 10 or 20 miles away,
So technically, a hotel could be a bedroom. A bedroom.
Well, I suppose it could if the people live there full time.
Oh, I was just thinking. My thought was that you just go there to sleep, and then you go and, like when you go on vacation, I just need a big enough place to sleep, hold my stuff, and take a shower because I only go there to sleep. So that's the connection I made there.
Yeah, but so the guy that solved that case, he was in the Kansas Bureau of Investigation. He died, and this lady that had the desk across from me, her name was Dolores Hope, and she wrote the story about his death, and him solving the case and all that kind of stuff. And so she says to me, she asked me, "Have you read In Cold Blood?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, if you're going to live in Garden City, you need to read it. I'll bring you my copy."
Whoa, hey.
And the next morning I came into work, her copy was on my desk.
That's amazing.
And she and her husband were mentioned in the acknowledgments.
Nope. No wonder she'd
been around when all that stuff happened.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Holy man. And Dolores too. That's just a great name for a journalist. Yeah, come on.
Smart lady. She's like everybody's mom, but she knew everything.
Yeah.
She knew everything. She knew everything about the town. She knew all the people. She knew where all the bodies were buried. She knew all that stuff.
Oh, literally too, right?
Yeah.
And then what kind of transition? So you're a journalist, technically, right? At this point.
Well, I was for 31 years.
Okay.
Now I work in marketing. Not quite the same thing.
Yeah. Well, you're still spinning yarns. Same thing.
Well, yeah. It's still storytelling.
Still storytelling.
Storytelling.
Yeah. Manipulating information to get what you want, dude. Same thing.
Well, yeah, it is kind of that. Yeah. Uh-huh.
But how'd you end up writing a book?
Well, part of that was, because of the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, back in the day when I was in high school and college and whatnot, I liked to write fiction. I wanted to be John Steinbeck.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to write fiction, but, you get so busy with work and raising kids and,
Mowing the lawn.
You know, the day of 9/11, I think I was there at work at 7 a.m. and I didn't go home till like midnight. You know, you get busy.
Yeah.
I remember the election, Bush and Gore. I was I was at the paper all day, and I was in the newsroom about 2:00 in the morning. We're still waiting to find out who won, so we can do the final change on the next day's paper. And said to this other fellow that later was my boss, I said to him, in a way, it'd be kind of cool if we didn't know who won tonight. Eventually we had to go with that sort of headline. And of course, it turned out to be weeks before we knew, know.
Yeah.
But so you're busy all the time. And I didn't really have time to pursue that. But then during the pandemic, I think it was the day before my birthday, which is March 21st, and I had the day off. And I was here at home. And I got this email or phone call or something from my boss at the marketing agency who said, we're closing down the office. Don't come in Monday. And
I think a lot of people got that phone call on that day.
Yeah, and she said, "I'm going to bring you a laptop computer over the weekend, and just plan on working from home." And so I was working from home for 10 weeks, and somewhere in that time, about halfway through, my wife started working from home. She captions phone calls for the hard of hearing. And she started working from home. She is still working from home. But we went back after about 10 weeks. But at any rate, so I wasn't driving to work in the morning. I wasn't driving home in the evening. I had some extra time.
Sure.
So, before I would start my work day or after I got done, I started writing these stories. And at some point, I had a dozen, well, probably before I got to that, at some point, I started adding up the number of words, and I thought, when I get to 40,000 words, maybe I've got a book there.
Well, yeah, but okay, hold on a second. Mm-hmm. So the idea for these stories and that type of thing, were these rolling around in your dome, like going back and forth to work, and when you had some downtime, when you weren't really thinking of much and you're like, oh man, I like this idea. And then you just started putting it down on paper?
Well, some of them were. The first one I wrote, and because I hadn't written anything like that in a long time, the first one I wrote was actually, it was about, wearing masks. We were all having to wear masks during the pandemic. And I had this thought about, it's strange that until recently, if someone went into a business wearing a mask,
they get shot.
Yeah, everybody would be afraid of them. They would think something bad's going down.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd almost rapidly done a 180, where if you went into a business without a mask, people were going to get upset.
Damn, that's a great way to explain that in very few words.
And so I thought about that and I wondered about it. And so I wrote this story about a guy who goes in and holds up a grocery store. First, I was thinking a bank, but I thought, you can't get into any of the banks. They're all locked up. So this guy goes into a grocery store and he's not wearing a mask. Everybody else is wearing a mask, but they're so used to looking at each other's masks, they can't remember what he looks like.
Oh my God, that's awesome. That's true though.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I could totally see that happening. He didn't have a mask on. What did he look like? I don't know. He didn't have a mask on.
I don't know. Yeah.
Now
he wasn't wearing a mask.
Now is that story in your book?
It is in the book.
Okay. Now, up until the book, how long of a story have you written? Now the book. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. The book is a bunch of little stories, right?
Right.
Okay.
A bunch of short stories.
How many?
I started with that first one, and my goal was 500 words
per story
for the first story.
Okay.
500 words for one story, and the reason I went with that was because That's about the length of a column in a newspaper. Someone who has their own column.
So that's funny that you made that connection, obviously, because of your connection with the newspaper, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what my first thought was? That's
No.
that's the length of a blog.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was never a regular column writer for a newspaper, but I had written, once every so often. I did a lot more, covering public meetings, writing feature stories, that sort of thing. But I had done one every so often. So, I knew I could write 500 words. So that's why I started with that number. And they just started growing from there.
Oh, okay, cool.
And the last one in the book is 7,000 words.
God damn.
Well, people who write a novel, they sometimes write 80,000.
Yeah, but
words.
Yeah, but I'm just going from 500 words to 7,000, right?
Yeah.
So how many pages would 7,000 words be?
How many pages? Well,
Give me an
give you a good general idea here. Let's see here.
Because I'm trying to, the people listening, I'm trying to give them an idea if they looked at a book, like your average.
That's about 75 pages.
75 pages?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a nice read.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get through that. Yeah.
Well, one of the advantages of formatting the book this way is it gives, one thing I hear from people a lot is, I like to read, but I never have enough time. So, you don't have to pick it up and read for an hour. You can find something in there that you can read, probably something you can read in there 10, 15 minutes.
I love that.
Or you can read a half hour, or you can read a little longer, just depending on which one you pick out, because they're different lengths.
Yeah, yeah. And did you, have you seen, I think Media or Mead? What's that? The publishing company, guy that I know, he was on a show a long time ago.
Okay.
I get his newsletters and his blogs. He writes stories and stuff. And what I like about it, I think it's Media. Anyway, what I like about it, right at the top, they tell you this is a 2-minute read. This is a 5-minute read.
I've seen that on, websites and blogs and things like that.
I thought that's pretty cool because you're like, okay, how much time do I have?
Yeah.
Or I'm waiting for my coffee. That's cool. I got my coffee. Hey, this is a 5-minute read. You know what? I can take 5 minutes and sit here and read this while I drink my coffee.
Well, I've got an idea of structuring a book with stories that are, 5, 10, 20 minutes and group them that way. Here's a group that's 5-minute reads. Here's some that are 10. Here are some that are 20.
I think that's beautiful.
So I think how much time you have, you pick out something that's about that length.
Yeah, and I'm not a fast reader, but if somebody's like, that's 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, I can get that done under 10 for sure. Right? So it still gives me an idea that I don't want to put this book down. If I'm reading this story and I don't know how long it is, all of a sudden I don't want to put it down, or I might, I don't know. I just like the idea of it giving you a rough idea how long the read is.
There you go. You feel like you've accomplished something.
Yeah. Or you can schedule your time. Plus our attention spans are.
Yeah.
When I was in the video business, on YouTube, when you watch and this was a selling point that I would tell people selling them videos. I go, on YouTube where it gives you 5 seconds to skip the video? And they're like, yeah.
Yeah.
I go, you got 5 seconds to come up with something that's going to help, keep the customer not to skip you.
Right.
So, you need content. You need, I go, why do you think people use fancy cars and half-naked women? Because it works.
Well, I've written a lot of TV spots and radio spots and longer videos and whatnot, but none of them with half-naked women so far. Apparently our budget doesn't go that far.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it depends on you. You stole my line, dude. I was like, oh, must be the budget was a little low. They demand a lot of money. But reading is amazing. I love reading. absolutely love two ways of reading. One, my mom got me into it years and years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Lee Child and the David Balducci, those books, those style of books, right? She would read like one in a day or two. She'd rip through them, and later on, before she passed, she was ill. But for years, she would read them, leave them in a box, and I would come up. I'd come up and visit. I'd take the box with me. I'd read them. Of course, it takes me crazy amount of time because, like you're saying, working and family, but there's just something about it, man. Laying in bed at night, and you crack a book open, and it squeaks, and it smells, and you can feel the pages.
I love the smell of ink on paper. I love it. I love it.
I do too. I just love the whole idea. But like, if I'm listening, I don't listen to like business books and all that bullshit. I don't listen to that stuff. But when I'm listening to like the book I'm listening now is called Natural Born Heroes, and it's about how the island of Crete kind of fucked it up for the Germans in World War II. To get to Russia. And there's some other things in it. Those kind of books I listen on Audible because I do a lot of driving, and I consume information well audibly.
Yeah.
Hence what we're doing now, right? But something about a book, man. And I imagine generations had that feeling with a newspaper.
Yeah.
Like I got my newspaper. We have a lady across the street or across the hallway. She just turned 99 years old.
Yeah.
And smart as a whip, dude. She'll sit here and have a conversation just like we are. It's just, I love seeing it. She gets a newspaper every day, and like her caregivers, like she reads that thing from
front to back,
corner to corner, front to back.
Yeah,
everything.
She does.
Yeah, and that's kind of what you worked in for 30 years, right? 30 plus years. People that
I tell you what I used to love to do. I know you spent some time out in Colorado Springs. We used to love to go out to Manitou Springs.
Oh, yeah.
And we had this place that we would stay, this motel cabin kind of place there on Manitou Avenue called the Green Willow. And
I know it well.
In the morning, I would get up in the morning, I'd walk across the street. There was a 7-Eleven there, and I'd buy a copy of the Rocky Mountain News and come across the street, and there was a little stream in the front of the motel property, Fountain Creek there.
Yep.
And sit in the Adirondack chair with a cup of coffee and read the paper. I'd sit there. I'd do that for a couple of hours before we go and do anything.
That's beautiful. Dude.
Yeah, that was my favorite thing to do on vacation. But of course, Rocky Mountain News went out of business, and
the
7-Eleven closed up, and the world just changes.
And now you sit there with your Kindle or your iPad, and and my wife has a Kindle, and she reads it with the I can't remember what they call it, but it looks like it's not on a computer screen. It looks like
it looks like a page or
whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, nah, come on, man. Nah. Psh. I go, that's like dancing with a hooker. I said, man, that just doesn't do it for me, man.
I'll have to remember that one. Yeah. It's like your sister.
Oh man, I use that one all the time. Oh man, that's old school there. The other one I use at work too, people just shake their head. I go, come on, because I'm like trying to get them to do things, like accomplish something. And they're having a hard time like figuring it out. I'm like, come on, man. It's like playing cards with my sister's kids. Jeez,
oh, yeah.
Come on, But no, that's I like that old stuff. And what's it? We were using it in the video business, above the fold.
Oh, yeah.
People like that.
Still say that with websites. We do a lot of websites.
Oh, that's right. That's right. They do say that.
Our
website
company designs a lot of websites. I don't do the designing part, but I read a lot of copy for them. And our clients, and I'm sure some of them have no idea why they say it.
Yeah.
But they'll say, I want that part above the fold.
Yeah,
They'll
I
tell
love
the
it.
designer, I want it above the fold.
And then
And
you
I'm
got to
always
go.
thinking, you got a different kind of computer than I do. Mine doesn't,
That doesn't fold. When I was, I don't know if you saw my website, but I don't know why I designed it the way I did. I put a video on the top and then in my newsletter thing, but quote unquote, below the fold is where you click to like listen to the episodes and go to where it's streamed. And a guy made a comment. He goes, "That's supposed to be toward the top." And I go, "You mean above the fold?" And he's like, "I have no idea what you're talking about, but it needs to be at the top." And I was like, "Okay, dude, whatever, man." Same thing. So
Smartest thing I ever heard about the fold in the newspaper. Because whenever we say that all the time, you want that story above the fold or whatever.
sure.
One of my old bosses, John Frazier, he'd pick up the newspaper and he'd look at it, he'd say, "You actually design 2 front pages. You don't design 1. You design this part, on the top that you're looking at with the flag and whatnot on it.
Yeah.
Then you flip it over and you design this one."
Okay, so hang on a second. Oh, so when you open it,
Yeah. Say this were the newspaper, and here's the fold. You design
That's
this front page,
yeah.
and then you design that one.
What?
So
Why
like
would?
the part above the fold and the part below the fold, you design them like they're 2 separate but complementary pieces.
I see. That
Because
makes sense.
that's
Okay.
the way the people read the front page of a newspaper.
Yeah, because they'll look at it and then they'll flip it over and
Right.
ah.
But we started designing pages on computers, and you have these tall, skinny monitors, and they show you the whole page, a whole page at once,
Yeah.
and that point got kind of lost
Yep.
on newspaper designers, because when they were designing it, they're looking at the whole page at once, but nobody looks at a front page of a newspaper that way.
No. So if you're looking at that tall computer screen, the bottom half would be upside down,
Well, so to speak. Yeah.
right?
The main thing, though, is that you got to
and
design it in such a way that bottom half is going to look.
Exactly. Okay.
enticing.
I see what you're saying. Yep. Yep.
It
yep.
shouldn't just be shouldn't be the bottom half of your blue jeans. It's got to, and you're wondering where's the rest of the, or some chicks have really nice calves, but you want to see the whole
No.
girl.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd rather take the rest of the blue jeans.
So you gotta design it so both halves look
Look
compelling,
good. That's amazing, dude. What a great line. So the title of your book is you got to explain that, dude. Tell the title.
Okay.
Tell the title and then explain it because
Okay, lion taming, dating, and other dangerous endeavors.
I love it. Dude. How'd you come up with that?
Well, the idea behind the title. Not all the stories in the book are about relationships, but some of them are.
Now the if people that are listening they can't see it, but the title of the cover page is a couple pairs of Converse, and it has
It wasn't really what I was referring to when I was talking about chicks with nice calves or anything.
Yeah, right. That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But it looks like a boy. It looks like a taller person on one side and a shorter person on the other, and they're on their tippy toes.
Yeah, I envisioned it as a guy and a girl.
Yeah, and then, but there's a lot. So you're saying not all of them are about dating?
Not all of them. But the title kind of, what it brings out, what it implies is that, in relationships and dating, whatnot, you have to be willing to make yourself vulnerable. You have to put yourself at risk.
100%.
Obviously, the risk is rejection from the other person.
Hurt.
Heartache, whatever you want to say. Whatever country music euphemism you might want to use. But you got to be willing to set yourself up for that. Or, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
No risk, no reward, right?
Right. And the first story that's in the book, it's called The Safe List. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but a lot of us have. I assume a lot of women have had this experience too, where you meet that other person that you're interested in, but they're only interested in you in a one-dimensional sort of way. You know, they like you as a friend, that sort of thing.
The friend zone.
Yeah, that's another name for it.
Yeah.
But you know, in particular, you know, I've had this experience in talking to other guys. You know, there's that woman that you like, but she doesn't think of you as boyfriend material because you're safe. You know, you're that kind of guy that's good to keep around when she needs help moving a sofa and stuff.
100%. Or
You know,
needs a cry on a shoulder because her boyfriend dumped her and she wants to watch Netflix with you.
yeah, that sort of thing. You know,
Yeah.
So
no, but I've never been there.
guy,
I've never been there. That's what they tell me, buddy.
Yeah. The guy in the story, he has this experience with a neighbor in his building, this girl he's interested in. And she tells him the dreaded thing, you know, no, I don't want to go out with you because, you know, you're safe. And then the next day he has this series of kind of bizarre experiences where he finds himself in ever more dangerous and harrowing circumstances. And the last one ends up with a lion that's escaped from the zoo.
Dude.
And he needs to know what to do, you know.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
I won't tell you how it ends, you know.
No, of course not.
Spoil the ending. But that's kind of where that comes from. And then there's such a diversity of stories in the book that I wanted to come up with a title that would encompass everything. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where the Other Dangerous Endeavors comes in. I mean, you know, there's a story in there about a semi-driving time-traveling nun.
Okay. Yeah, we're just going to leave that one right there. We'll just.
I went to a Catholic college that had an affiliate school that was a truck driving school. I never did figure that out, but it made good fodder for a story.
I was going to say.
There's, you know, a story about some people who are ghost hunting. You know, a number of different sort of things like that could be seen as dangerous endeavors.
All right, cool. I like the idea. So off the top of my head, there's two things that I love about it. The title school. I love the shortness of each one, right? So if you only got a few minutes like we talked about, and then the variety. So you're not digging into, it's like a season on Netflix of a show, but each episode is different.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. And there's a little something in there for everybody.
Yep.
You know, I don't know. Some people want to read romance all the time, and that's okay.
Yeah,
there are plenty of books for that.
Yep.
But there are relationship stories, there are mystery stories. There's a spy story that I wrote with misheard song lyrics. Like, there's a bathroom on the right, you know?
Yeah. I like, dude, just so you know, I've used that a handful of times already.
Yeah. See that girl, watch her scream, kicking the dancing queen.
Oh, that's amazing. And that's
Stuff
one
like
of the.
That.
Oh, that's cool.
I actually,
cool.
I came up with as many as I could think of. You know, let's pee in the corner. Let's pee in the spotlight.
Let's pee in the spotlight.
I'm losing my religion. You know?
Yeah.
I came up with as many as I could think of off the top of my head, and then I actually went out and researched a bunch of other ones.
Yeah, but
it was a challenge, you know, weaving them all into a coherent storyline.
Of course.
But when I was done, I had a spy story.
So you take all these misread song lyrics, made a spy story out of it.
Yes.
Jesus Christ. How fun was that? Did you have a good time?
That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing that.
I could see you.
That's
having
one of the advantages of short stories too. I mean, it's an advantage for the reader that they get to read a lot of different things, but it's an advantage for the writer that you can experiment with a lot of different styles of storytelling, genres, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And write all sorts of different kinds of stories.
A listener or a listener, got mixed up here. A guest that I had on sent me a recommendation for a book, and it was amazing. And it reminded me, I remembered it because what you were just talking about with your book.
Uh-huh.
And it's the something I'll have to look it up. Do you remember the name of that? Oh man, hang on. I'm going to send you the. Keep talking. I'm going to look it up real quick.
All right.
What other story you got in there?
Oh, well, let's see here. I wrote a story kind of based on some of my childhood camping experiences with my dad. And one of the things that he was always trying to do was he was always trying to convince us that, Bigfoot was right outside the tab.
Beautiful. Why wouldn't he? I would do the same exact thing. Did he go out and make noises?
I wrote a story where Bigfoot was right outside the tab.
That's awesome.
That was a lot of fun. That never actually happened, but obviously I haven't met Bigfoot. But if he calls me up one day and demands some royalties from the book, we'll have to talk about that.
Well, I don't know, man. Dude, some of the girls I dated out in Colorado, they could probably give him a good run for his money.
You've heard that expression, a Wolverine woman. Have you heard that?
No. What's that?
I've never had this experience, but the Wolverine woman is the one where when you wake up in the morning. Oh,
yeah, you chew your arm off.
You'd chew your arm off and get away without waking her up,
Yeah. God, what is that? Yeah, I've heard a different phrase for that, but same thing. The book was The Anthropocene.
Okay, I haven't heard of that.
I think by John Green. I think
John Green. Yeah,
I think you would really enjoy that book. And he
read The Fault in Our Stars.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have not. He mentions that in this book. I have not gotten to that. What was the name of that? What was his other book you just said?
The Fault in Our Stars.
Yeah. But the Anthropocene, same thing, man. Every story is wildly different than the previous one.
We'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. And again, guy Travis King, he was a true vagabond. He traveled the world on a backpack budget for like 4 years. Now he lives on a beach in Mexico. So, yeah, super fascinating guy.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, a lot of fun he's a great guy to talk to. So, but I like the book idea, man. And you can find it on Amazon and all that good stuff.
It is on Amazon. Yep.
Awesome. I will have the links obviously in the show notes, but I got to shut you down, dude.
Okay.
This has been a damn good time, man.
Well, good. I've enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure.
And tell everybody where they can find you. Give us your elevator pitch, buddy.
Okay. Well, I'm on Facebook and YouTube at RJ Post Author. The book is available on Amazon. I can be reached at rjpostauthor@gmail.com. And the book again is Lion Taming, Dating, and Other Dangerous Endeavors.
Nice. All right. And then again, I'll have all the links in there, so people can just click on the show notes and take it from there.
All right.
RJ, damn good time, buddy. Just hang tight. We're going to end the recording, but hang tight. I told you, man, this dude is just a fucking good time, man. I'm definitely going to have him back on. And link is in the show notes where you can reach out to him. He would love to hear from you. And grab a damn copy of his book while you're at it. Support, please. And I'm going to get you out of here because I know you got shit to do, but do me a couple things, man. Help me out here. If you love the show, I'm all about shared value. If you love the show, you learned something, you made you laugh, whatever it is, tell a friend or 7. Pass it along, man. All right? And don't forget, liverishi.com. Use the code word TABLE, 50% off your entire order. High-quality CBD product. And my website, waltzkitchentable.com. Everything you need to know or want to know about the show, you can get there. You can actually reach me. And if you know anybody who would love to come on, I would love to hear from them. All right, man. Remember, when I say have a great day, the motherfucker is silent. Till next time.